The concrete felt like ice through the thin blanket. Traffic roared above him all night. The air under the bridge smelled like wet metal and old rain. Ethan Parker pulled the blanket tighter and stared into the dark. He was 17 years old. Most kids his age worried about tests, football games, prom dates. Ethan worried about staying warm until sunrise. A truck rattled across the overpass overhead. Dust drifted from the concrete. He closed his eyes for a second, then opened them again. He had learned not to sleep too deeply. Not down here. Not anymore. Beside him sat everything he owned: a black backpack, a rolled-up hoodie, 3 library books, a notebook held together with tape, and a cracked phone showing 8% battery. The screen lit up, 5:42 a.m. He sighed. Another day, another chance. That thought surprised him every morning. Most people would have looked at his life and seen failure. Ethan still saw a chance. He didn't know it yet, but hidden inside those library books sat ideas worth billions, ideas that would change everything. The city around him was Chicago, the South Side, January, the kind of cold that slid through your clothes and settled inside your bones, the kind that made breathing hurt. Ethan stood and stretched. His stomach growled. It always did. He dropped to the pavement. 20 push-ups, every morning, no matter what. Rain, snow, hunger, didn't matter. 20 push-ups. His dad taught him that years ago, back when life still made sense. Back when there was a house. Back when there was a family. Back when Ethan still believed adults knew what they were doing. He finished and stood. His hands were red from the cold, but the ritual mattered. It reminded him he still controlled something, even now, especially now. A train horn echoed somewhere in the distance. Chicago was waking up. So was he. He slung the backpack over his shoulder, then started walking. The McDonald's on 63rd Street opened early. Sometimes they let him sit inside. Sometimes they didn't. It depended who worked the morning shift. The smell of hash browns hit him before he reached the door. His stomach twisted. He checked his pocket. $2.16. That was all. A week earlier, he had $7. The money disappeared, one meal at a time. The cashier recognized him. A woman named Brenda, maybe 50, always tired, always kind. Morning, Ethan. Morning. You staying warm? Trying. She nodded. She never asked questions. That meant more than she knew. He bought the cheapest coffee available, then sat near the window. The cup warmed his hands. Outside, people hurried toward jobs, toward normal lives, toward homes waiting for them later. Ethan watched them, not with jealousy, with curiosity. He wondered what it felt like, to know where you'd sleep tonight, to know where you'd be next month, to know somebody expected you home. A man in a business suit entered. He ordered breakfast, pulled out a laptop, started working. Ethan couldn't stop watching. Numbers covered the screen. Charts, graphs, spreadsheets. The man looked focused, important, certain. The life Ethan used to imagine for himself, before everything broke. His phone buzzed. One text from his little sister, Mia, age 12, living with a foster family across town. Good luck on your job interview today. 3 heart emojis followed. Ethan smiled, then stared at the message. His chest hurt, not from the cold, from missing her. She was the reason he kept going, the reason he hadn't quit, the reason he woke up every morning, the reason he believed the future still mattered. He typed back, "Thanks, kiddo. I'll call tonight." The battery dropped to 7%. He put the phone away. The interview wasn't really an interview. It was a warehouse application, one of many. He had filled out dozens, maybe hundreds. The answer was usually the same. No experience, no address, no callback, no chance. People said hard work mattered. It did. But an address mattered too. So did clean clothes. So did having somewhere to shower. So did not look homeless. People rarely said those parts out loud. By 8 o'clock, he reached the warehouse, a gray building near the railroad tracks. The manager glanced at the application. His eyes stopped at the address line. Blank. Again. Always the address. "Where are you staying?" the manager asked. "Different places." The man's face changed instantly. Not cruel, just finished, like the decision was already made. "We'll call you." They never called. Ethan knew it. The manager knew it. Both pretended anyway. He walked out 10 minutes later. Snow drifted through the air. Small flakes, sharp flakes, the kind that stung your face. He laughed once. Not because anything was funny, because disappointment felt familiar now. Expected. Almost comfortable. That scared him more than anything. Across the street stood the public library. The Harold Washington branch wasn't close, but this smaller neighborhood library welcomed him, at least most days. Libraries saved him. Nobody asked why he stayed so long. Nobody cared if his clothes looked worn. Nobody demanded money. Just a library card, his most valuable possession. Inside, warmth wrapped around him. He almost sighed out loud. The smell of books greeted him. Dust, paper, coffee from someone's travel mug. Safety. For a few hours anyway. A librarian named Mrs. Campbell waved. She had silver hair and reading glasses. "Good morning, Ethan." "Morning." New business books came in. His eyes lit up. "Really?" She smiled. "Thought you'd want first look." Most people his age avoided business books. Ethan loved them. He couldn't explain why. Maybe because every successful person seemed to know something he didn't. Maybe because books felt like conversations with people smarter than him. Maybe because books never judged where he slept. He headed straight for the shelves. That was where the obsession started. Quietly. Almost accidentally. Months earlier, he found a book about a man who built a huge company from nothing. Then another. Then another. Business strategy, marketing, sales, leadership, investment, negotiation. He read everything. Not because a teacher assigned it, because survival assigned it. If somebody built $1 billion company, Ethan wanted to know how. If somebody escaped poverty, Ethan wanted to know why. If somebody solved a problem, Ethan wanted to understand the solution. The books became his teachers, his college, his roadmap. He sat in his usual corner, far from everyone else, a forgotten spot near old reference shelves. Dust gathered there. People rarely passed by. Perfect. He opened the first book. Hours disappeared. That happened often. Words became ideas. Ideas became possibilities. Possibilities became hope. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, Ethan studied companies. Why some failed. Why others won. How people spotted opportunities. How businesses solved problems. How value created money. One sentence stopped him cold. He read it 3 times. The biggest businesses solve problems people ignore. He stared at those words. Something clicked. Not completely, just enough. A tiny spark. The beginning of something. He wrote the sentence inside his notebook, then underlined it twice. That notebook mattered. Every idea went inside. Every lesson. Every observation. Every dream. He carried it everywhere. If the backpack disappeared tomorrow, he would save that notebook first. Around noon, his stomach growled again, loudly. He hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Mrs. Campbell appeared beside his table. She placed something down, a wrapped turkey sandwich. Nothing else. No speech, no pity, no attention. Just a sandwich. Then she walked away. Ethan swallowed hard. Kindness hit differently when life got hard. Sometimes it felt heavier than cruelty. He waited until she disappeared, then ate slowly, trying to make it last, trying not to cry. He hated crying, especially in public. The sandwich tasted better than any restaurant meal. Years later, he would still remember it, every bite. That afternoon, he read until closing, then read some more. Mrs. Campbell finally approached. "We close in 10 minutes. "Sorry. You don't need to apologize." She looked at the stack of books. "Learning anything useful?" Ethan smiled. Maybe changes lives." Then she walked away. He thought about those words all evening. Maybe changes lives. The shelter was full that night. Again. No beds available. Again. The volunteer at the desk looked apologetic. "Sorry, kid." "It's okay." It wasn't okay. But getting angry wouldn't create a bed. He stepped back outside. The wind hit hard. His fingers felt numb. Streetlights glowed through falling snow. Chicago looked beautiful from a distance. Up close, it could break your heart. Ethan walked without direction, just moving, trying to stay warm, trying to stay awake, trying not to think too much. A week later, things got worse, then worse again. His phone finally died, completely. No charger, no money, no way to call Mia, no way for Mia to call him. That hurt most. He visited the foster home anyway, just to see her, just to know she was okay. They sat on the front porch, cold air, gray sky, traffic humming nearby. Mia hugged him tightly, too tightly, like she worried he'd disappear. Maybe she did. "You look tired," she said. "I look awesome." She rolled her eyes. "You're a terrible liar." He laughed. For a moment, they felt like normal siblings. For a moment, life felt ordinary. Then reality returned. Always. "When are we getting our own place?" she asked quietly. The question landed hard. He looked away. Cars moved through the neighborhood. A dog barked somewhere. "I don't know." She nodded. She understood more than a 12-year-old should. Their mother had died 3 years earlier. Cancer. Their father followed a year later. Heart attack. One after another. Everything gone. The house disappeared after medical bills piled up. Then relatives stopped answering calls. Then the foster system stepped in. Then Ethan turned 17. Too old for many placements. Too young for everything else. The fall happened slowly. Then all at once. Like a building cracking before collapse. He remembered the exact Tuesday. The day everything changed. The day social services informed him another placement wasn't available. The day he packed his backpack. The day he walked outside. The day the street became home. That Tuesday replayed inside his mind constantly. He wondered what tiny choice could have changed it. Maybe none. Maybe that's what hurt. Before leaving, Mia handed him something. A photo. The two of them, taken years earlier at Navy Pier. Both smiling, both safe, both clueless. "Keep it," she said. "You sure?" "Yeah." He slipped it into the notebook, right beside the business ideas. Then he hugged her goodbye. He didn't know it then, but that photo would become fuel, a reminder, a promise. The weeks dragged forward. Cold days, colder nights, rejected applications, long library hours, small meals, tiny victories. One afternoon, he found an old laptop inside a Goodwill clearance section. $20. Broken corner. Missing key. Still worked. Barely. He stared at it. Wanted it desperately. Needed it. Couldn't afford it. Not even close. The employee noticed. "You buying?" Ethan shook his head. The man nodded, then lowered the price tag. $10. Ethan blinked. "Seriously?" The man shrugged. "Looks like junk anyway." It wasn't junk. It was possibility. 3 days later, Ethan returned with $10. The laptop became his. That night, he sat inside the library until closing, learning free software, watching business videos, taking notes, reading articles. The cracked machine hummed loudly, but it worked. And that changed everything. Not immediately. Nothing happens immediately. Real change rarely does. Still, something was building. Piece by piece. Knowledge piled up. Ideas piled up. Questions piled up. He started noticing things around the city. Problems. Inefficiencies. Needs. The abandoned corner stores. The struggling food trucks. The local businesses with terrible websites. The owners who worked hard but stayed invisible. Patterns emerged. Business books talked about patterns constantly. Now Ethan saw them himself. One evening, he overheard 2 restaurant owners talking near the library entrance. "Nobody knows we're here. We can't afford marketing." They walked away, but Ethan kept thinking about it. All night, all week, all month. Because maybe problems people ignored were hiding everywhere. Maybe opportunity looked different than he imagined. Maybe. That word again. Maybe. Spring arrived slowly. Snow melted. The city softened. The bridge felt less brutal at night, though it still wasn't home. One afternoon, Mrs. Campbell found Ethan reading again. Same corner, same notebook, same focus. She sat across from him, something she had never done before. "You remind me of somebody." "Who?" "My son." Ethan looked up. She smiled sadly. He believed learning could fix anything. Could it? Not anything. She paused. But it fixes more than people think. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a worn hardcover book. The pages looked ancient. The cover barely hung on. This changed his life. She slid it across the table. Ethan looked down. A book about business strategy. Old. Forgotten.
Covered in notes. "Keep it," she said. "I can't." "Yes, you can." He opened the first page. Handwritten notes filled the margins. Thoughts, ideas, lessons. Someone else's journey hidden inside. He looked up. Mrs. Campbell was already walking away. He carried that book everywhere afterward, even while sleeping, even under the bridge, especially under the bridge. One night he reached a chapter discussing market gaps, places where demand existed but solutions didn't. His eyes narrowed. He thought about those restaurant owners, the food trucks, the local businesses, the ignored corners of Chicago. An idea flickered, small, fragile, incomplete, but real. His heart beat faster. He grabbed the notebook, started writing, page after page. The traffic thundered overhead. Cold concrete pressed beneath him. The city slept around him, but Ethan stayed awake, writing, calculating, thinking. For the first time in months, he wasn't focused on surviving tomorrow. He was imagining next year. Then the notebook filled, and what he wrote there would change the course of his life. Ethan barely slept that night. The notebook rested on his chest. Cars hissed across wet pavement nearby. The bridge groaned above him, but his mind stayed busy. The idea refused to leave. He had spent months reading about businesses, months studying why some companies grew, months learning what small owners struggled with. Now he saw something clearly. Many neighborhood businesses had terrible online presence.
Some had none at all. No websites, no updated information, no social media worth mentioning, no way for new customers to find them. The owners worked hard, but invisible businesses stayed invisible. The next morning, he rushed to the library. His backpack bounced against his shoulders. His shoes were falling apart. His stomach was empty. None of that mattered. He opened the old laptop, then started teaching himself website design. Free videos, free articles, free lessons. Hour after hour, day after day. The learning felt endless, but Ethan loved it. Every new skill felt like another brick, a foundation forming beneath him. A month later, he approached his first business owner, a barber shop, small, tired-looking, near 71st Street. The owner was named Rick, late 50s, broad shoulders, kind eyes. Ethan rehearsed the conversation 20 times, then walked inside. The smell of aftershave filled the room. Clippers buzzed. A radio played quietly. Rick glanced over. "You need a haircut?" "Not exactly." Rick laughed. "You selling something?" "Maybe." The barber folded his arms. Ethan explained his idea. A better website, updated information, photos, hours, contact details, a simple online presence. Rick listened politely, then shook his head. "I ain't got money for that." Ethan expected that answer. "I'll do it free." Rick looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I need practice." The barber studied him carefully. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Rick nodded. "Okay, kid."
Ethan nearly smiled. Nearly. He didn't want to celebrate too early. That was mistake number 1. 3 weeks later, the website was finished. It looked simple, nothing fancy, but it worked. Rick liked it. Customers liked it. A few new appointments arrived through online searches. Not many, but enough to matter. Enough for Rick to notice. Enough for Ethan to feel something dangerous. Hope. Then reality arrived. Nobody else hired him. Weeks passed. Nothing. Business owners smiled politely, then declined, or ignored him, or promised to call later. The calls never came. His first attempt almost worked. Almost. That word again. Summer arrived. Chicago felt different. Hot sidewalks, open windows, kids riding bikes. The city seemed alive. Ethan still slept under the bridge, still carried everything he owned, still spent most days at the library. But something inside him had changed. He no longer looked at successful people and wondered what they knew. Now he studied how they moved, how they solved problems, how they handled rejection. One afternoon, he met a food truck owner, a woman named Lisa. She sold tacos near a busy intersection. The line was usually short, too short. Ethan introduced himself. Again,
explained his idea again. This time she listened longer, then hired him. $50, his first real client. He almost couldn't believe it. $50. To most people it wasn't much. To Ethan it felt enormous. The money bought meals, a charger, new socks, a cheap haircut.
For 1 week, he felt almost normal. Then the food truck business slowed. Lisa cut expenses. The work disappeared. His second attempt almost worked. Almost. The disappointment hit harder this time because success had come close enough to touch. That was the cruel part. Close enough to see, too far to keep. He sat in the library that evening, staring at the laptop. Mrs. Campbell noticed immediately. "You look defeated." "Maybe I am." She sat beside him. "What happened?" He explained everything. The barber shop, the food truck, the rejection, the dead ends, the constant struggle. Mrs. Campbell listened quietly. Then she pointed toward a bookshelf. "You know what's over there?" "Books." She smiled. "What else?" He shrugged. "Thousands of failures." He frowned. "What?" "Every successful person on those shelves failed first." She stood. "Sometimes many times." Then she walked away. The words stayed with him. That night he opened biography after biography. Entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders. Most had failed repeatedly. Not once. Repeatedly. The pattern surprised him. Failure wasn't unusual. It was common. Expected even. That realization changed something. Not overnight, but steadily, like sunrise. A few weeks later, Ethan tried something new, his third attempt. Instead of selling websites, he created simple marketing packages. Photos, online listings, basic social media help. Everything together. Affordable, practical, easy. He printed flyers at the library. Then spent days walking neighborhoods, store after store, business after business, door after door. Most people said no. Some didn't even let him finish. One owner laughed, actually laughed. "Kid, you look homeless." The words landed hard, because they were true. Ethan walked away without responding. The shame followed him all day. That evening, he sat alone under the bridge, watching headlights move through darkness. For the first time in months, he considered quitting. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just quietly, like somebody setting down a heavy bag. Maybe this wasn't realistic. Maybe books weren't enough. Maybe he had confused learning with progress. Maybe people like him didn't get opportunities. The thoughts came fast, one after another. He pulled out Mia's photo, looked at it, studied their smiles, then remembered something. Years earlier, before their mother died, before the bills, before the chaos, before everything, Mia had fallen off a bike. She kept trying, again, 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 crying between attempts, bleeding from one knee, refusing to stop. Finally, she rode straight down the block. Their mother cheered. Mia smiled like she had conquered the world. Ethan remembered what their mother said afterward. "Parker kids don't quit." The memory hit hard. He laughed quietly, then wiped his eyes. The bridge suddenly felt less lonely. The next morning he kept going. That decision would matter more than he realized. A month later, something unexpected happened. A small restaurant owner called, then another, then another. Not many. 3. But 3 was more than 0. Word had spread. Slowly, painfully slowly. Still, it spread. 1 client became 2. 2 became 4. 4 became 6. The money wasn't life-changing, yet, but it was real, and real mattered. Ethan opened a free business email account, created a simple name, built a basic portfolio, collected testimonials. Tiny steps, important steps. One evening, Rick, the barber, stopped him outside. "You got a minute?" "Sure." Rick handed him an envelope. Ethan looked confused. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside sat $300. Ethan stared, speechless. "I can't take this." "Yeah, you can." Rick smiled. "You helped my shop." Ethan's hands shook. $300. It felt unreal. For a second, he couldn't speak. Rick nodded toward the envelope. Use it wisely. Then he walked away. Ethan stood there for several minutes, holding the envelope, holding proof. Proof that his work had value. Proof that he wasn't imagining things. Proof that people would pay for solutions. That night he bought a motel room. Just one night. Nothing fancy. Nothing special. But it had a bed, a shower, a door that locked. He stood beneath hot water for almost 20 minutes, just standing there, eyes closed, letting warmth wash away months of street life. He slept deeply for the first time in nearly a year. The next morning he cried when he left, not because the room was special.
Because he couldn't stay, not yet. Success was still fragile, still temporary, still uncertain. Fall arrived. Business improved, slowly, steadily. Ethan now had a handful of regular clients, enough to survive, barely. But survival wasn't the goal anymore. Something larger had taken shape. He noticed another pattern. Many small businesses faced the same problems: marketing, visibility, customer communication, scheduling, basic systems. The solution couldn't be one website at a time. It needed scale, a bigger approach. That idea haunted him. He filled notebook after notebook, sketches, plans, systems, possibilities. Then came another setback, a big one. His laptop died, completely, without warning. The screen flickered once, then went black. Just like that. Months of work felt threatened. His chest tightened. He carried the laptop to a repair shop. The technician examined it, then shook his head. Not worth fixing. Ethan felt sick. The machine had been everything: school, office, teacher, business partner, future, gone. He walked out silently. Rain tapped against storefront windows. The city looked blurry, gray, heavy. That night he returned to the bridge, for the first time in a long while, defeated. The old feelings returned: fear, uncertainty, doubt. What if he lost momentum? What if clients disappeared? What if progress stopped? The next morning he arrived at the library anyway. Habit carried him there. Mrs. Campbell noticed immediately. What happened? He explained.
She listened, then disappeared into her office. 10 minutes later, she returned carrying a box. She placed it on the table. Ethan opened it. Inside sat a refurbished laptop. Used, not new. Perfect. His eyes widened. What is this? Community donation program. I can't afford it. You don't have to. Ethan stared, speechless again. Mrs. Campbell smiled. Just promise me something. What? When you're successful, help somebody else. He nodded immediately. I will. I know. She believed him. That mattered more than the laptop. The following months changed everything. His work improved, his confidence improved, his client list grew. He stopped sleeping under the bridge every night. Sometimes he rented cheap rooms. Sometimes he stayed in shelters. Progress came unevenly, but it came. Then something happened that nobody expected. A local business association invited him to speak. Just 10 minutes, nothing major. A small gathering, 20 business owners, maybe 30. Ethan almost declined. Public speaking terrified him, but he needed the opportunity. The meeting took place inside a community center. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Coffee brewed in the corner. Business owners chatted around folding tables. Ethan felt completely out of place. 17 years old, second-hand clothes, nervous hands, big dreams. When his turn arrived, he stood, took a breath, then started talking. Not like an expert, not like a salesman, like someone who genuinely wanted to help.
People listened, really listened. Heads nodded, notes appeared, questions followed. The room felt different afterward, warmer, interested in him, interested in his ideas, interested in what he could build. 3 new clients signed up that week, then 5 more, then 8. Momentum finally arrived, the thing he had chased for so long, the thing that always stayed just beyond reach. Now it was moving toward him, fast. Yet one problem remained, the biggest one: Mia. She was still living with another family, still waiting, still hoping. Every success felt incomplete without her. One evening she called. Her voice sounded older, stronger. When are we getting that place? Ethan smiled sadly. Working on it? You always say that. Because it's true. She laughed, then grew quiet. You think it'll happen? Ethan looked out the window of a budget motel room. City lights shimmered beyond the glass. For the first time, he answered honestly. Yeah. A pause followed. A long pause. I think it will. After the call ended, Ethan sat alone, thinking. His business was growing. Clients were arriving. Money was finally appearing. But growth created new challenges, new expenses, new risks, new responsibilities. One mistake could still destroy everything. One bad month could send him backward. And a decision waited ahead. A huge one. The kind that changes lives. He had been offered something unexpected. A partnership opportunity.
A chance to expand far beyond Chicago's South Side. A chance to build something real, something large, something that could finally bring Mia home. But accepting it meant risking nearly everything he had built, and he still hadn't decided. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The offer sat on his chest like weight. A partnership, real money, real reach, real risk. He walked the South Side streets before sunrise. Cold air again, different kind now. Not survival cold, decision cold. He stopped near a closed grocery store, looked at his reflection in the glass. Same cracked phone in his pocket, same tired eyes. But something underneath had changed. Something harder, something sharper. He whispered to himself, if I stay small, I stay stuck. A truck passed behind him. Headlights washed over the street. He nodded once, like he had just agreed with his future. The next morning, he called the number. I'll do it. A pause came through the phone. You sure, kid? I'm sure. That was all it took. No dramatic music. No celebration. Just a decision. 3 weeks later, everything moved fast. Too fast at first. Ethan met Marcus Reed downtown. Marcus was 38. Clean suit. Calm voice. The kind of man who didn't waste words. You really built all this from scratch? Marcus asked. Yeah. In the library? Mostly. Marcus smiled like he didn't fully believe it. But he didn't doubt it either. Then you're either lucky or dangerous. Ethan shrugged. Maybe both.
Marcus leaned back. I like that answer. They signed papers that afternoon. Simple deal on paper, big change in reality. Ethan's small operation became part of a larger marketing company. Not erased, expanded. That mattered to him. He didn't want to disappear inside someone else's success. He wanted to grow his own. Marcus saw that. That was why he agreed. First month was chaos. New clients, real office space, meetings that lasted hours, terms Ethan had never heard before, budgets, scaling, retention, conversion rates. He wrote everything down, like he always did, like survival still depended on it, because part of him still believed it did. One day, Marcus noticed him sleeping in the office, on a couch, laptop still open. You don't have a place? Marcus asked. Ethan paused. Working on it. Marcus shook his head. No. That's not a plan. 2 days later, Marcus handed him keys. Small apartment, not fancy, but clean, safe. Ethan stared at them. I can't take this. You already did. Marcus walked away. Ethan stood in the empty apartment for a long time, just listening to silence. Real silence. No traffic above a bridge, no wind through concrete gaps. Just still air. He sat on the floor and laughed once, then cried. Not loudly. Just enough to feel it leave him. The first night, he slept in a bed without worry. He woke up twice, not from fear, from disbelief. It still didn't feel real, but it was. Work accelerated. Ethan now led small teams.
Helped businesses rebuild their online systems, created structured marketing plans, turned scattered ideas into systems, real systems. His name started circulating. Local articles mentioned him. Small podcasts invited him. Nothing huge, but noticeable. One afternoon, Marcus called him into the office. We're expanding to 3 new cities. Ethan blinked. Already? Marcus nodded.
You didn't think we were small forever, did you? Ethan almost smiled. I didn't think anything was forever. Marcus leaned forward. That's why you're good at this. Growth brought pressure. Pressure brought mistakes. Some clients left. Some campaigns failed. 1 month almost collapsed everything. Ethan stayed late every night fixing problems. Old fear returned briefly. Fear of losing everything again. But this time it didn't control him. It just warned him. He adjusted, rebuilt, learned faster, moved differently. One evening, Marcus found him staring at old notes. You still thinking like you're on the street, Marcus said. Ethan didn't look up. Because I was. Marcus sat down. You aren't there anymore. A pause. Ethan finally nodded. I know. But knowing and feeling were different things. Months passed, then a year, then another. Ethan's life changed in ways he couldn't fully track. He stopped counting money so carefully, stopped worrying about meals, stopped scanning rooms for exits first. But he never stopped carrying Mia. Never. That part didn't change.
One morning, she called unexpectedly. Her voice was different again, quieter this time. I might age out soon. Ethan froze. What do you mean, might? That's what they said. Silence stretched. Then she added softly, I don't have anywhere to go. Ethan stood up immediately. I'm coming. Ethan, I'm coming. He hung up. Marcus watched him from across the office. What happened? It's my sister. Marcus nodded once. Go. That was all he said. Ethan drove through Chicago like the city owed him time. Every red light felt personal. Every delay felt wrong. He reached the Foster office within an hour. Cold building, gray walls, familiar kind of place. He had been here before, too many times. Mia sat in a waiting room chair, feet swinging slightly. She looked older, but still 12 in her eyes. She stood when she saw him, then didn't move, like she wasn't sure he was real. Ethan? He walked straight to her. I got you. Her face crumpled instantly. All the waiting came out at once. All the years, all the uncertainty. She grabbed him hard. He held her tighter. Neither of them spoke for a long time. A worker approached cautiously. You're her brother? Yes. Do you have stable housing? Yes. Income? Yes. Long-term plan? Ethan looked down at Mia, then back up. She comes with me. The worker studied him, then nodded slowly. Paperwork followed. Hours of it. Signatures, questions, verifications. At one point, Mia leaned over and whispered, Is this real? Ethan squeezed her hand. Yeah. When they finally walked out together, the air felt different. Not lighter, just honest. Mia looked around the parking lot. So where are we going? Ethan smiled. Home. She stopped walking. We have a home? He nodded. Now we do. The apartment was small, but to Mia it looked like a palace. She ran from room to room, laughing, touching everything. You have a bed for me? Yes. You really live here? Yes. She turned suddenly serious. You're not leaving again? Ethan shook his head. Not ever. That night they ate pizza on the floor. Simple food. Paper plates. Cheap soda. Mia talked nonstop. School, friends, fears she never said out loud before. Ethan listened to everything, like every word mattered, because it did. Later, after she fell asleep, Ethan stood by the window. City lights stretched across Chicago. Same city, different life. He thought about the bridge, the books, the hunger, the failures, the almosts. Every step that brought him here. Marcus texted him, Good work today. Proud of you. Ethan stared at the message, then replied, I just got lucky. Marcus responded quickly, No, you just didn't stop. Ethan put the phone down, looked at Mia sleeping, for a long time, then whispered, We made it. Not as celebration, as acknowledgement. Years passed again. Ethan's company grew into something stable. Not flashy, not mythical, just solid. It helped thousands of small businesses across cities.
Owners who once felt invisible now had presence, real presence. Ethan never forgot where it started. He personally funded programs for homeless youth, library partnerships, laptop donation drives, free training spaces.
Mrs. Campbell attended one of the events, older now, slower, but still sharp. She looked around the room and smiled. "You built something bigger than I imagined." Ethan shook his head. "I just followed what you started." She raised an eyebrow. "No, you chose it. That mattered more." Mia graduated high school years later. Ethan sat in the front row, clapping too hard, not caring. She looked at him from the stage, smiled, mouthed the words, "We did it." He nodded. "Yes, we did." That night they sat outside their apartment, summer air warm, city loud in the distance. Mia leaned her head on his shoulder. "You ever think about that bridge?" Ethan stayed quiet for a moment. "Every day." "Does it still feel real?" He looked up at the sky. "It feels like another life." She nodded, then smiled softly. "Good." Ethan understood something then. Success wasn't the opposite of struggle. It was what you built after it. Not escape, continuation, responsibility, meaning. He had money now, stability, respect. But the real thing he gained wasn't any of that. It was choice. And he used it to make sure nobody around him ever lost dignity the way he once almost did. Years later, someone asked him what changed everything. Ethan thought for a long moment, then answered simply,
I stopped waiting for permission to matter. The room went quiet after that, because everyone understood it differently, but deeply, and that was enough. He didn't talk much about success. He talked about systems, about access, about what people need when nobody is watching. And when he walked through Chicago now, he still saw the bridge sometimes, still remembered the cold, still remembered the books. But it didn't own him anymore. It reminded him, and that was different, much different. One evening, Mia asked him something before bed. "Do you think people can really change their whole life?" Ethan sat on the edge of her doorway. "I think they change it one decision at a time." She thought about that, then nodded. "Like you did?" Ethan smiled slightly. "Like we did." He turned off her light, closed the door gently, and stood in the hallway for a moment longer than necessary. Not because he was lost, because he was grateful. For every broken step that somehow still led forward, for every night that didn't end the story, for every person who helped without needing credit, for every moment he didn't quit. And in that quiet hallway, he finally understood something simple. Not everything that breaks you is the end. Some things are just the beginning in disguise. If you keep walking, if you keep learning, if you keep choosing, then even the lowest place can become the first page of something new.
And sometimes the life you think you lost was only waiting for you to build it back better. He whispered it once to himself before going to bed. Keep going. Then he did. The story is now complete.